Coming to you live from his friend's apartment and wearing his friend's shirt, it's Matt McGlashan! Thanks, Matt. Hey, y'all. My name is Matt McGlashan. It's officially February, which means we are in the thick of depression season. Or as we all call it, winter. Does anyone else find it strange that we start the new year in the middle of the most grim time of year? Like everything is frozen, everyone is cold, and in the meantime, let's make fundamental changes to our lives? Whose idea was that? It may not surprise you, it was famous haters of fun and joy, our puritanical predecessors. Yes, they left us with the dreaded legacy of New Year's resolutions, and also colonization. We all know that New Year's resolutions don't work, but if you need some cold, hard proof, a 1947 Gallup poll reported the top 10 New Year's resolutions, and surprise, they haven't changed. The top 3 are still lose weight, be kinder, and stop accidentally marrying my cousins. But this year, I've finally cracked it. I have a 2-pronged approach. They say that you should make attainable goals, so I have set my New Year's resolution goal as making 2022 better than 2021. And I've set myself up for success by absolutely tanking the end of 2021. Come along for story time for a moment. November. My girlfriend's apartment floods and is subsequently gutted. We move into my van. Together. Supply chain shortages significantly impact the renovation timeline. And then in early December, we both contracted COVID. Well, at work. So we begin isolating in my van together. We spend most of the holiday season in my van together. My resolution scheme was going perfectly at this point until January 3rd, when I found out I have cancer, but more on that later. Now, I work in marketing, and I think that winter needs better PR. Here, step into my office, I've prepared a presentation, let's take a walk through this. Look at this photo. Are these trees nearly dead? Or are they naked? And look at this photo. Is everything in here freezing and thawing inconsistently, or is it always wet and slippery? In short, I'm proposing that we rebrand winter as the horniest time of year. Post-holidays, everyone gets down on their bodies, shaming themselves for the festive treats that they've just enjoyed, but really, we should be going down on each other. And aren't we all just preparing ourselves and our curvaceous bods for the sexiest time of year? We have long, cold nights and lovers to keep warm. I think we've secretly been desperate for this for decades. Why? Valentine's Day. Why dedicate a holiday to sex and or love in the middle of the most depressing season? Because it was never supposed to be depressing. Of course, now that I've mentioned Valentine's Day, all of you aggressively single folk are getting a little frustrated about being reminded that it's coming up because it totally means nothing to you at all. But guess what? Me and my partner really don't care for it either. Like, come on, how the fuck am I supposed to find flower petals naturally at this time of year? And why the hell am I being threatened at arrow point by an armed, naked baby demanding that I get sexy with my loved one? We have already eaten all of the edible underwear that he provided, and it was not adequate nutrition to fuel our lovemaking. Lately, I've had to move in with my girlfriend's parents. And one great thing about that is that I fit right in. Because they're a little bit older, and I used to joke that I had a secret old man living inside of me. His name was Harold, he lived on 32nd Westmoreland Street, and he would spend his winters deep in my appendix to stay warm. It turns out that is what the appendix is for. Of course, because of Harold, I would make weird old man dad grunts like, ooh, and ah, as I hopped onto beds or eased into sex. But lately, I've really realized that Harold is no longer a secret old man. I am Harold, and Harold has cancer. At 4 a.m. on January 3rd, Harold woke both of us up so that I could go throw up some blood and be rushed to the emergency room to find out. Did you know that doctors are trained to sit down before delivering bad news? I think it's so that you don't feel like they're going to dash out and leave you alone with the bad news they just gave. I had no idea. So when it happened to me, I really just thought of me and my doctor were kind of chilling. Like he strolled in, popped a squat, and it was like, all right, this doctor can fucking hang. That was kind of good that was going through my head though, because then when the bad news did come, it kind of hit me slow. Like the ER doctor said, well, you have cancer. Obviously not in so many words, but you get it. And it took me a couple of minutes after he left to realize that my girlfriend was crying and ask what was wrong. Like, kudos, Dr. Houdini, for somehow still following the protocol and being able to ghost me without me realizing what exactly had happened. This motherfucker was slick. Cancer is never something you're prepared to hear. Like, when you first hear it, it always feels a bit out of left field. It felt like it was something that was happening to someone, but not me. It took me a few hours later when I met my oncologist where I was finally like, oh, I am the one with the cancer. It hits you a little weird, like a twist in a TV show. You know, like you're watching Game of Thrones and it takes you a couple minutes before you remember that this sex scene is incest. And at that point, you're already halfway through jacking off, so you just gotta commit because it turns out Pornhub was right when it recommended all that stepsister content. It's unusual for someone my age to have cancer, so I kind of had to do a search to find some peers, and it turns out having cancer is a lot like being pregnant. And luckily, a couple of my friends are, so we can commiserate. Think about it. Both pregnant women and I have something growing inside of us. We both get mood swings and cravings at random hours of the day. And we both get told that we can't eat half of the things we're craving. It doesn't stop there, though. Like, lately, because of my chemo, I've been having super bad tinnitus in my ears, and my girlfriend had a sympathy tinnitus attack the other day. Like, you know how some parents-to-be gain sympathy weight along with their partner. Another thing that I have in common with pregnant people is that everyone keeps offering to buy both of us gifts. Like, do things for us. Every time I am chatting with someone, they ask me how they can help. And I feel like one of those volunteer coordinators for UNICEF. Just like, thank you. Thank you for having a guilty conscience. We will add you to the roster. My body has seriously been doing some crazy shit though, and 95% of the time, it turns out that crazy shit is just normal shit for cancer. It's hard to say though. I'm not sure if it's comforting or terrifying all of the time. Like every time I Google a new symptom, there's some asshole doctor who has never been in my position, just like, yep, that's nothing wrong at all, no worries there. And I'm just left here thinking, well, I guess blowing my nose and only getting pitch black snot isn't a sign that I'm carrying the Antichrist. One of the things that they don't tell you when you start chemo is all of the hair doesn't fall out evenly. Like, for about a week and change, I had these weird straggler, sad hairs that just wouldn't go. My partner's mother described it affectionately as mangy. And I couldn't even argue. Like, okay, let me paint you a picture. It was like one of those Arctic forests where you think, yep, that's technically a forest, but I can see through it. For those of you who didn't know me pre-cancer, my hair had been described as iconic and cloud-like. Cloud-like felt very accurate, because once it started falling out, it began to form its own weather system. It was like, thanks, Dale. It's a windy one out there. Make sure you bring one of your umbrellas or a lint roller, because we're expecting flurries of hair throughout the day. It's really fucked up. But don't worry, everything dissipated once the wind changed. The hair loss itself didn't stop at my head though. Shortly after the head hair went, My beard began looking like a middle schooler's, and my pubes began to resemble a desert, like scattered curls and tumbleweeds dotting a dry and arid landscape. When we finally did fully shave my hair, my head hair, I found little curly strands and tufts of it all over the house for days. It was kind of like I owned a ghost poodle. You know, a poodle, but once it sheds, the hair becomes visible. It's basically a dog that only made chores and never gave me love. So I guess it was kind of more like I owned a curly-haired cat. Okay, now I know that this is supposed to be a little bit educational, so let me try and take a stab at turning this around and giving you a useful takeaway before I go here. Building connections is hard at this time of year, whether you live with people or with a ghost pet. So, my homework for y'all is to go home today and just lick chocolate off of something. It'll make you feel better, even if it's your own body. Just remember, if the individual you're licking chocolate off of has recently gone through chemotherapy, you should wait 48 to 72 hours before going to Chocolate Town. I've been Matt McGlashan. Thank you all very much. Good night!